There he is right there in the doorway. And the statewide offices in Saratoga. I can't say enough about how helpful they have been in our move here, which will be taking probably 18 to 24 months. So get used to this room. We hope you'll be coming back. We've got some really exciting activities coming up. But of course, today's activity is Brighton's annual celebration of the life and the works of Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor. Every year we hold this ceremony to honor the legacy and the work of Dr. King. And as part of this ceremony, we honor a member of the community whose own work exemplifies the life of Dr. King and who has kept Dr. King's dream alive here in Brighton and in the Rochester area. But more on that in a minute. If you would, if you're able, I ask you to please rise in body or in spirit for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. As we celebrate the life and the works of Dr. King, it is important, too, that we honor and acknowledge the heritage of the Haudenosaunee, the original keepers of this land. We acknowledge that the town of Brighton is situated on the ancestral and traditional lands of the Onondaga tribe of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, whom we recognize and respect as the traditional custodians of this land throughout the generations. We pay our respect to Onondaga elders, both past and present. The history, the culture, and the traditions of the Onondaga are truly worthy of our understanding and our study as we praise those who keep these traditions alive. We recognize that the study and understanding of the Onondaga history, culture, and traditions is of ongoing importance if we are to truly understand the history, the culture, and the traditions of this community and of our nation. We support all efforts to ensure that we and future generations continue to respect and recognize the Onondaga in a way that is honest and truthful, so that in the words of Sacagawea, the great Haudenosaunee chief and orator, who is also known as Red Jacket, we may also always work together to brighten the chain of friendship. We have a number of officials that are here today. I'd like to introduce them, and I want to thank them for taking time out of their schedules to be here. We have Assemblywoman Sarah Clark. Sarah represents the town of Brighton, much of the city of Rochester, and we are grateful for all of the many ways that you, Sarah, have worked for the people of the town of Brighton. Thank you. We have from our town board, our entire town board is here today. Councilmember Chris Werner, Councilmember Robin Wilt, Councilmember Christine Corrado, Councilmember Nate Salzman. We also have a couple of members of the Monroe County Legislature. I see one in the doorway, Howard Mafucci, who represents a part of Brighton, and Rose Bonick. Thank you both for being here. I know we have Mark Kokonovich from the school board. We have a lot of school people here. We just have a wonderful crowd from the community, volunteers from our volunteer boards. It is so meaningful to have you all here. Dr. Martin Luther King Day affords us the opportunity to pass the legacy of Dr. King to the next generation of students here in Brighton. In Hebrew, the phrase is lador vador, from generation to generation. Today, we will enjoy the insights of our students on what Dr. King means to each of them. Our first speaker is from, I believe, Camille is the member of the Black Student Union at Brighton High School. We have a number of students here, but first, Camille Bennett from Brighton High School. Camille, welcome.
Hello and good afternoon. I'm Camille Bennett from Brighton High School. Today, we celebrate the memory of Martin Luther King Jr. Though mostly celebrated for a day off and a national holiday, I celebrate not only what he accomplished for African Americans, but also for the equality of our nation. Even when faced with constant backlash for his views on peace and equality, he still fought for civil rights of all people. It wasn't just African Americans who benefited from his fight. He did it for everyone. With the understanding there's still much more to do, using the civil act of disobedience, he found great success. Proving to make a change in history doesn't always have to be violent. Through it all, he continued to dedicate himself to equal rights, earning the trust and support of many Americans that decided to follow him. America will forever be changed because a man had enough bravery to stand against the hate African Americans were facing through love, determination, and peace. While he is still celebrated, there are ways we can still help spread his message. Take the MLK holiday and give back to our community. Carry on his mission of peace and service to make a world led by acceptance and understanding. Let us be proud to stand where we are today. And not let's just celebrate his achievements for one day, but every day. Thank you, MLK.
Thank you so much, Camille. You know, that you really captured the importance. Yes, we will be celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Day, but it is so much more than a day. He is a man who changed America for the better forever. Next on our program, I'm really excited because we have one of Rochester's true ambassadors on the program today. Our ambassador of music, Herb Smith. Now, you may know Herb. If you go to the RPO, Herb plays trumpet in the RPO. But if you know him personally, or if you follow Herb on social media, Herb travels the region, travels the country as an ambassador, sharing the language of music, and particularly sharing the language of music and his love of music with students. Now today we have Herb leading his Freedom Trio. We have Peter Twazik on bass. We have Joe Parker, Brighton resident, on the drums. And of course, Herb Smith on trumpet. Herb, take it away. Thank you, Herb. Thank you to the Freedom Trio. We're going to be hearing from them again later in the program. We've also, today really is in so many ways, and I'm so glad Camille, talked about this. It's about service, but again, it's about generations. And we have today students from Brighton's 12 Corners Middle School. The school is well represented here today, and I'd like to introduce Jordan McLeod, Michael Mulugeta, Zane Sahale, and Ziri Townsend, who will be reading excerpts from one of Dr. King's most famous speeches, his last speech, which he gave in Memphis, Tennessee, the day before he was murdered, speaking to striking sanitation workers in the city of Memphis. We all know it. I've been to the mountaintop. Our students from 12 Corners Middle School, welcome.
Some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter to me because I've been on the mountainside.
Refuse to accept the idea. That man is mere flotsam and jetsam in the river of life that surrounds him.
Refuse to accept the cynical notion that nation after nation must spiral down the militaristic staircase into destruction.
Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to our northern cities. Knowing that somehow the situation can and will be changed, let us not wallow in the valley of despair.
We do indeed have troubled times ahead. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. Thank you to those great students. We really appreciate having you here today. To folks that have been in Rochester for a while, and yeah, I'm one of them, Dr. Ruth Scott needs no introduction. She is one of those extraordinary people who has been there and done that in every aspect of our community. Now, Ruth and I have something in common. A few of you may know this, but probably most of you don't. Ruth and I were both born in southern Michigan. Ruth was born in Albion, Michigan. A small city not much more than an hour away from Detroit, where I was born. Ruth, I don't know if you're dealing with the same angst that I'm dealing with right now. Who are we rooting for in the Super Bowl in February? All I know is when it gets here, and it's going to get here, Ruth and I are going to be very happy people. Growing up in Albion, she went on to Albion College, and then from there did graduate work in education at Kent State University. And Ruth, that's a place where my mother worked in education as well. She was from Cincinnati originally. And Ruth went on from Kent State, taught in Cleveland, where she met her husband, Bill Scott. Bill, it's great to have you here. We were joking earlier, we don't have a piano in the room. Bill is quite an accomplished pianist, and I've heard him play back over in other settings, so it's wonderful to have you both here. And you were sharing with me, Kathy Setty's role in bringing you here to Rochester. This is a small city, and those wonderful connections mean so much. Ruth came here from Cleveland, taught, became Dean of Women at Madison High School, got increasingly engaged in community activities in the 19th Ward Neighborhood Association, and inevitably in politics. In 1977, in 1977, Ruth was the first African-American woman elected to the Rochester City Council. And in 1986, she became the first black president of City Council. Now, much more recently, Ruth and Bill moved to Brighton, where they live just a short walk from Brighton Town Hall or other town hall. And in that time, she continued her community work in a number of areas, but in particular serving on the board of the Brighton Memorial Library, and we really appreciate that. Our executive director, Jennifer Reese-Taggart from the library, is with us today. Ruth has been widely recognized. She's received honorary doctorate degrees, both from her alma mater, Albion, but also from Alfred University, as well as many, many other well-deserved honors. The town of Brighton recognizes how important it is as a diverse and thoughtful community to recognize people who in every aspect of their lives have worked to keep Dr. King's dream alive. I know no person who better exemplifies commitment to Dr. King's dream. And therefore, today, it gives me great pleasure and pride to recognize Dr. Ruth Holland Scott with Brighton's Keeper of the Dream Award. Ruth. Ruth truly has been a keeper of the dream for all of us here in Brighton, in Rochester, and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to sit down, as is Dr. Scott, and we're going to enjoy your remarks.
Okay, thank you. Let me put
Are
that
you all
back.
set there?
It's a real pleasure for me to be here with you today. I am so excited to be in the town of Brighton. And I'm excited to be here because this is one of the few communities that I know about who has a division of equity and inclusion. And I think you all deserve a hand of thanks for that kind of commitment. Is there a table over there? Thank you, appreciate it. It's always a challenge for me first to begin a speech, to write one, as my husband will say. He's always saying to me, "Have you written a speech yet? Have you written a speech yet?" And I always do, but sometimes my muse deserts me, and I get up in the middle of the night and I have a few things I want to say, and I put them down, and then it keeps going until we get to a speech finally. And part of it is because I've had so many wonderful experiences and so many other people who've helped me do whatever I have done. I haven't done it by myself. And through the grace of God and through other people who are also holding up the dream, I've been incredibly blessed. And so therefore, I think it's important for me to share with other people some of the experiences I have had. Before I get into that completely, I want to say that it has often made me want to share more widely some of the things that have happened and some of the things that I think are important for people to know. And therefore, one of the things that I did after going through the COVID season, I guess we've been in this world, and the kind of hangover I think that people have after COVID when they have retreated into themselves and forgotten about other people. And what came to me to write was this book, which I now have had published, which is called Raising Confident Children. And one of the things I want to say to you about the book, and that is not my main reason for being here, but I want to say about it, it is really written because I want to implore all of you to be a part of raising confident children. It really does take a village. And no matter what your interaction is with young people and with older people too, is that somehow you must be an inspiration to them. I know that's hard for some people. Some people are pretty negative people, and their experiences have not been so great. But what we need to be looking at is the infinite possibilities that everybody has to be better than they are. And so I want to just share with you a couple of excerpts from the book, if I can find them. One of the things I think is really important is modeling behaviors, healthy behaviors. In my experience, there are two levels of interaction between children and caregivers and adults. Most adults I grew into parenthood or other positions of authority with their own philosophies, dreams, and experiences as a basis for understanding other people whom they helped and developed. You may have also noticed, as we just discussed before, that successful development requires paying attention to both a child's inner self and outer self, its mental self, spiritual self, and physical self. The inner self requires the planting of positive ideas and encouragement, and therefore resulting in a positive self-image. A confident outer self is built on a bedrock of attention paid to health, safety, and care of the body, mind, and spirit. That is my main purpose in writing this book. And I don't have any of them with me today, but there are various places where you can find them. You can order them from Barnes & Noble, and the library will have some eventually. And also there are other places around town when you can find them if you need to and want to. I certainly hope, though, that you will make a decision that it's important for you to also be a part of this village raising the children. It's really exciting. I have a number of things I'd like to share with you today about the King legacy. First, I have to thank you, the youth, to the town of Brighton, Supervisor Millie, and Miriam Moore, Chief Diversity Officer, for this very special and appreciated honor. I am not alone in standing on the shoulders of many others in an attempt to keep the dream of love, hope, and faith alive, flowing through generations. From the time I agreed to honor the King legacy through sayings to Coretta Scott King, when she asked if I would be willing to help her spread the clarion call of his messages throughout the ages by established celebrations throughout the United States and the world. And until now, when forces are gathering to erase the history of the sacrifices and inspiration, I am humbled to have played a minor role in her success. At one point, more than 26 countries worldwide and most of the states of the United States and the Congress set aside this holiday. I was humbled to be asked to be part of the City of Rochester's appointee on the National MLK Commission linked to the center in Atlanta to learn and complete the circle of training, equipping soldiers of peace with the actual knowledge of the cause. You know, when I look around me and I see all these people wanting to say, well, these things didn't exist in history, and we know they did exist in history, I feel very sad about the fact that they think future generations will be hoodwinked into thinking that there was no history. There's plenty of history to go around, and we need to be working to find out truths and then sharing them with future generations. I'm happy that my friend, now deceased Coretta, is finally receiving the due recognition for her entiring work, even though many men said to her when Dr. King was killed, you know, you should stay home and take care of the children. That's your job now. And she and I had a conversation about that one night when she was in Rochester. When she came to a hotel in Rochester and she was planning to speak or something, sometimes she would call me up and she'd say, Ruth, what are you doing tonight? And if Coretta asked it, it was always nothing. And so I said, oh, I'm not doing anything. What do you want? She said, well, will you come over and talk to me? We like to talk. So anyway, she said, okay. So this one night when I was there, she said, I have a problem and I just want to lay it out for you and ask you, what should I do? And I said, well, what's the problem? And she said, well, the men of the movement say I should not be trying to establish the holiday. It should be something that they will do and they plan to do. And she said, but I don't feel comfortable with that. She says, not that I don't think they can do it, but it just feels to me that I am called to do it and I want to do it. I said, well, if you feel you're called, you got to do it. And so that's a really minor thing, I guess, that impelled her to do it. But I feel good about the fact that I was able to meet with her and to say, you ought to do it. And you know what's really wonderful about it? She didn't ask much of many people. I mean, I didn't have to go all the world with her. Of course, I couldn't have left my family and done that, you understand. But it was just a matter of, I knew some people in Congress who were from other states, and she asked me if I would go and talk to them about their possibility of establishing something in their states, and everywhere I went that I would take the message. And so I was more than happy to do that. It was a very, very little thing, believe me, but it was a very important thing. And that has given me inspiration over the years in my life. I marveled at her, and that's why at her response to them, and she was encouraged to do it, and so I was happy. What I said to her, you should say to yourself, you know what, I can do both. I'm a woman, phenomenally. She didn't say the phenomenal, but that was Maya Angelou's poem. In my latest book, Raising Confident Children, I address the importance of the role of each of us in our villages and families to support children's search for confidence by showing them the heroes and sheroes whose lives are inspired by giving them respect of believing in and supporting their innate potential, by teaching them that they must respect everyone, including themselves. Do not forget the children belong to all of us. My father used to say, everyone is either part of the problem or part of the solution. Do not worry about those who try to discredit you because of the color of your skin, your gender, or your smarts. It's their problem, not yours. We may not have the opportunity or resources to solve all the problems of the current age against the onslaught of those who try hard to rewrite history and hide the complicity of themselves in making so many people fit their fevered attempts to kill the dreams, and thus make we dreamers tread our way through the blood of the slaughtered. That line from James Weldon Johnson's poem, Treading Our Way Through the Blood of the Slaughtered, lift every voice and sing. It is our shared faith and commitment which I believe will make a difference in the end for our girls, those malcontents tried to introduce into the public dialogue as if being oracles from on high, that a woman's only place is in the home, in slippers and bathrobes and birthing rooms. That men, by way only the men of certain color and financial status, own the right to be elected to high places and leadership positions everywhere. These men continue playing childhood games like King of the Mountain or Superman and the costumes they wear, and hop on any news station or social media to proclaim they are the kings of the world. And as a king, it is their right and responsibility to burn all the books and the Constitution and stamp out ordinary citizens' dreams like elephants in our china shops of fulfilling dreams. Don't let them do it. They believe they have the responsibility to choose that the adults, boys and girls, should read and punish those who disagree. Only the things that they think they should read. And those who wish to hold hands, point out roads to diversity and inclusion, and pour our souls into change in the world, they literally work to kill heroes like Martin. And these atrocities give directions what behavior of bigots is not only wrong in the gender wars, where they have poured fuels of fire, but it also confuses manhood with little boyhood. And this confuses young men in understanding that real manhood is being able to support men and women in their lives. As my mother used to say, we are in a mell of a Hess. What I'm trying to share with you today is to encourage you to continue to find and promote the techniques of Martin Luther King and hold to his dreams, as he said in his speech and other speeches, and join hands with all who are willing to work, as King wrote in one of his speeches, to make and choose a community over chaos, because we're surely going to have chaos if we don't find a way to choose community. As King's words would say, is our hope. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. This theme, along with many other pithy questions of his, is depicted in the Washington Monument of Dr. King. A couple of observations about that. When Bill and I went to D.C. to see the sculpture, we were amazed at the emotional outburst of joy and affirmation experienced by those from all over the world who were taking pictures after they found their quotation that was their favorite quotation. That in itself was an exhilarating experience. And we could tell they were from other places because many of them did not speak English. They were speaking languages that I didn't know or understand, but you understood it by the fact that they were there and that they were affirming their belief in Martin Luther King. It was also interesting to us that the statue of the mountain is diminished. It's very small. And the man is very large. And so what it says is these mountains of despair need not be overcoming the aspirations of the people and the men. And so we were really excited about that. Our working together, we claim our strength and keep moving apart. Art, music, all the forms of expression that tell us about this are something that we should enjoy in finding and looking for. One of the experiences I had when I was the chair of the League of Cities Economic Development Program, we were in Phoenix, Arizona, and we went to myself and other members of the committee went to this church to see something. We didn't know what we were going to see. It turned out that it was a statue of what the young ladies who were killed in the church would have looked like had they been allowed to live to be at least 18 years old. And there is the statue was in the middle of a pond, and there were steps, and you walked out to the pond, and then you stood up in the middle of it. And I got to tell you, it was a religious experience to be there. And one of the members with me, who happened to be from Atlanta, started to weep. And the minister who was showing us around his church said, "Well, what's the matter? Did I do something wrong?" And she said, "No, I didn't know you cared. I didn't know you cared." And I understand there are replicas of that statue all over the world. I think the first one was in Atlanta. And one of the things I would encourage you to do is to go and find these places of inspiration that have been done in relationship to the history of the King movement. One morning, as I was writing on my nightmare dream about people trying to kill the dreamers, and after explaining I'm getting over my COVID-induced hangover, I wrote these words, and I hope they will inspire you to continue to dream, but also to work every day to embrace the diversity and the dreams of our children in our community, and think about it. Don't just read it. Think about it. Remember and encourage our youth and seniors with great knowledge of right and wrong. Help them not to feel like they can be run over by rabble-rousers, the dream killers, and the destroyers of community. You really can't be. You'll rise again. Believe me, these ideas are ideas that are important for the ages and forever, and they will continue to come back up. But it is important that we link our hands together and try to make sure that they come back soon. And we can do that by our work in the communities and throughout the world. I would encourage all of you to do something every year, every day, every week, every month that reinforces the dream. It's all right to have the day of celebration, but it is so much more important for you to have a life of dedication. And so I would implore you to do that. Because in that case, we'll be able to sing free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last.
Wise words from a wise elder. Thank you. And I mean elder with a capital E and with all of the respect that comes from the community.
Thank you.
Ruth, while you're there, I also want to read and present this proclamation from the town of Brighton. It's been signed by all of the members of the town board. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. promoted his belief in the equality of all men and women and courageously employed the principle of nonviolence as the primary strategy to fight for freedom and justice for all, ultimately losing his life by assassination after enduring years of personal sacrifice. And whereas the only federal holiday with dual designation as a national day of service, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is also a time to serve others through volunteerism and engage in community action that seeks to solve social problems. Whereas in honoring Dr. King, we must continue to build stronger, more diverse communities that reject racism, sexism, bigotry, and poverty, so that one day we will fully realize the great promise of democracy. Whereas today we honor Dr. Ruth Holland Scott, a trailblazer in education and politics, published author, and more than just that one book. I encourage you to read all of Ruth's books. And first African-American woman elected to Rochester City Council, whose life of service embodies the ideals promoted by Dr. King. Whereas overcoming barriers and bringing people from different backgrounds together to build stronger communities, this outstanding Brightonian has made an indelible, positive impact on the world. Whereas, to quote Dr. King, human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. And I'll just say dedicated individuals like Dr. Ruth Scott. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and the members of the Brighton Town Council, do hereby name Dr. Ruth Holland Scott as the 2025 honoree of the Town of Brighton's Martin Luther King Day commemoration, the Keeper of the Dream, and thank her for devoting her life to ending injustice, discrimination, and to furthering the education of children. This proclamation has been signed today, the 17th day of January 2025, by myself, by my colleagues on the Brighton Town Board, and it's a great privilege to present it to you, Ruth.
Thank you.
We are truly blessed that you are a part of this great community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow. Next, and in keeping with our engagement today with students, so apropos of Dr. Scott's remarks, we have Navia McCullough from Mercy High School. Please welcome her.
Hello, everyone. Hi. I am Nevaeh McCullough, a junior at Our Lady of Mercy. When thinking about the impacts Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has made on us as a society, I think about my favorite part of a prayer we recite in our leadership course. Leadership is hard to define. Lord, let us be the ones to define it with justice. This section of the prayer understands that leadership is shown in many diverse forms, but ultimately should rely on one's global awareness and sense of responsibility to serve others. It also perfectly aligns with the morals and values Dr. King represented throughout his life legacy. Through his understanding of the world around him, Dr. King relies on peace to grab the attention of those who held a prejudice against Black America. When faced with oppression, Dr. King pushed to uplift the cries of the people. Today, we as a society come together in many different forms in a common consensus of equity and justice for all. For me, I find that Dr. King's legacy has provided me with a sense of pride and comfort. Having the knowledge that I am a part of a community bigger than myself, filled with such history and dedication for the greater good of people, is powerful and humbling, but with it comes a great deal of responsibility. However, I find myself wondering if we are doing enough to better that community. As many before us have sacrificed their lives to better ours in dedication to the civil rights of the people, I begin to question whether Dr. King's dream has truly become a reality. Would he think we have a great deal of work to do? While the push for equity and inclusion for all people of color has become a mainstream ideal, it has yet to become a standard. The eyes of the people continue to open as they are exposed to the injustices they see in their own communities. Yet, I still look at the world around me amazed at how much we still need to do to come together. We remain separated. We fight, we judge, and we completely diminish all the pain and suffering past legends have taught us. When will we learn? When will we learn that the true illness of the world is hatred, greed, and division? It pains me to think that I live in a society in which people are ridiculed and belittled if they are not the ones in power. How will we ever learn to strengthen the foundation of what Martin Luther King Jr. and many other civil rights leaders built if we remain as divided as we are now? Our division is our global weakness. We cannot continue to look back on the past and think that the fight for inclusion will ever stop. No matter how long it takes, we must keep fighting. I pray that I am a part of a future that does not discriminate based on race, gender, or status. A future that is not solely based on making the rich richer, but instead a future where we can bring the movement of unity to our country and eventually our world. It is then that we will understand the true meaning of Dr. King's teachings. And on that day, I hope we truly show what it means to make one man's dream a reality. Thank you.
So if you take nothing else away from today, you hear anybody talk about these kids today, tell them you know better, you've heard better, you've seen better. They are the future. They are the ones who will take us to the mountaintop. Thank you. Back to our ambassador, Herb Smith and the Freedom Trio.
I would just like to say that the first selection we played is a song that I learned at Greater New Light Baptist Church in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the pastor of that church was Fred Shuttlesworth. Fred Shuttlesworth was the pastor at the church in Alabama that was bombed. So the Martin Luther King lineage and dream has been passed down to me. It has been passed down to me. And I know for a fact that Martin Luther King's dream exists and it is thriving. The fact that you came up here and spoke means that his dream is existing and thriving. The fact that we are here celebrating him and his achievements means that his dream is thriving. Is there more work to do? Yes, there is. But let's take a second here and look at what we have done. We have done. We are moving. Things are different than they used to be, right? There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but there are a lot of things that have been fixed and that are being fixed. And I am proud to be here today to celebrate that. I'm glad that they called us in here to play. It's just, music is my expression, and it's just a beautiful thing to share with everyone. And piggybacking on Dr. Ruth Scott here, this next song we're going to do is a song I wrote when I was a single dad, and I had some help with a lady that lived down the street who helped me babysit my daughter, who my daughter is a graduate from Mercy. And it was just a thing that she was a good help in those times, and it's like it takes a village. It really does take a village. It takes a village to make a dream come true. It takes a village to raise a child. Every one of us is here because we were helped. Every one of us is here because at some point in our life, there was someone there for us that helped us. And this next piece I wrote for what we affectionately called her the nanny babysitter. But what I like to call this song is Good People. I hope you enjoy it.
Herb Smith and the Freedom Trio. Oh, Chris was trying to got it now. Okay. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, all three of you. Great part of this show. Next, I'm pleased, she was already introduced, but Councilmember Robin Wilt has remarks on the significance of today. Robin?
First, I want to say that so many of the themes that I'm going to just hit on briefly today were already expressed so eloquently by our youth and by Dr. Holland Scott. I am just moved beyond words today by this gathering. So, according to the King Center for Nonviolent Social Change, the theme of the 40th anniversary of the federal Martin Luther King Jr. holiday observance is Mission Possible: protecting freedom, justice, and democracy in the spirit of Nonviolence 365. This theme honors Dr. King's unwavering dedication to justice and equality through nonviolent action. It serves as a powerful reminder that safeguarding freedom, justice, and democracy is achievable when we unite in love and nonviolence. At my seasoned age, I never lived a single day at the same time as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was born almost a year to the day after King was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. That's why I find it so profound that we have in this room this multi-generational, multicultural manifestation of King's legacy. We truly are reflections of Dr. King's dream. It's particularly fitting that we have not just the voices of youth so well represented today, but also mentors like Dr. Ruth Holland Scott, Dr. Herb Smith. And I see so many others in the room that I'm just going to throw out at the risk of leaving somebody out, and obviously Dr. Bill Scott, Dean Brenda Lee, and Lawrence Hargrave, J.D. Jackson Jr., Rodney Allen Young. Thank you so much all for taking part in this commemoration today. All who have dedicated their lives to pour into the youth in our community in a manner exemplary of the teachings of nonviolence and youth advocacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. At a time when Black books that authentically articulate our truth and experiences continue to be banned, efforts to rewrite history abound, and our freedom and democracy are under threat, the importance of the tools that Dr. King left behind and the legacy that we all represent in committing to the work needed to achieve the beloved community of which he spoke loom even larger. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in language. They made everything black ugly and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms of the word black. It's always something degrading, low, and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure, high, clean. Well, I want to get the language right today. I want to get the language so right that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black. I'm proud of it. I'm black and beautiful." King declaimed that our society overtly and subtly teaches us to have disdain for Black cultures and identities. His revelations in this regard are essential to understand the history of America and how it was built on the backs of our ancestors and continues to suppress our communities through systemic mechanisms. Thus, we must continue challenging racial stereotypes and cultural disinformation to uplift our humanity and protect our civil and human rights as a whole. That mission of nonviolent social change that Dr. King pursued is only possible if we embody that mission not just one day a year when we commemorate King and his legacy, but rather 365 days of each year and 366 in leap years. While some may erroneously believe that nonviolence, particularly King's brand of nonviolence, entails the absence of doing something, nonviolence at its core is not about what not to do. It's not just the absence of violence. It is about what you are going to do about the violence and injustice in our own hearts, in our homes, our neighborhoods, and society at large. It's about taking a proactive and sometimes provocative stand against violence and injustice. Ultimately, nonviolence is about action, not inaction. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed that nonviolence has the power to transform society by addressing injustice at its root. Just like combating hate requires a commitment to enacting love, the violence that is overwhelmingly perpetrated against African Americans and the less economically powerful has always required an equal measure and commitment to nonviolence. The beautiful thing about nonviolent resistance is that we all have the physical capacity to engage in it. The ultimate question is whether we have the strength of will and the courage of conviction to commit to it, as did King, as a lifelong practice. So I leave you all with this question on this weekend when we're commemorating the legacy of Dr. King. What have you done today in the name of nonviolent resistance to advance King's legacy? Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Well said, and good guidance for all of us, a good directive for all of us. Thank you. Over 3 years ago, Brighton led the way. Brighton became the first town in upstate New York in hiring a chief diversity officer, Miriam Moore. Today, at a time when we see businesses, the big ones, the ones we know, turning back the clock and rejecting the importance of recognizing the diversity of their stakeholders, the job of local government, and particularly the job of local government in a community like Brighton, that is a diverse community, that strives to meet that objective every day. We're not going to turn back that clock. The office of Chief Diversity Officer is an important one. It's part of our core group, and I want to thank Chief Diversity Officer Miriam Moore, who organized today's event. Thank you so much, Miriam, and I want to welcome you to the podium for your remarks.
And to the brilliant, young, and gifted minds with us today, I charge you with the commitment to dream. Dream big, dream bold, and anchor all that you do in your dreams. Oh, my dearest, brilliant, young, gifted minds. The elements will come. But if you commit yourself to your dreams and hold fast to your inspirations, no one or no wind can stop you. So go forth, brilliant, young, gifted minds, knowing you have a right to dream and you have a right to be here, no less than the trees and the stars.
Thank you so much, Miriam. As always, so powerful, direct, and meaningful. I'll add my thanks, though nowhere near as eloquently as Miriam just did. Thank you to our student speakers, to our schools, to their leaders who are bringing them here, bringing them to activities that take them on the road. Take them to the place where we and our future generations need to go together, together, together. Ruth, Dr. Scott, I can't call you Dr. Scott, I gotta call you Ruth. It's been such an honor to be able to recognize your lifetime here in Rochester and now here in Brighton for so much you've done to keep Dr. King's dream alive in every part of that storied, extraordinary life. Thank you so much. We do face daunting times. Let's not sugarcoat it. We see hate. We see hate manifesting itself in anonymous social media and in very public seats of government, where a Congress member actually thought that part of her job was to introduce legislation to stop another colleague from using the bathroom. We see hate. But I see the next generation. I see all of you, and some of us from those previous generations, who are jealous, frankly, of the opportunities that you have to finish the unfinished work of your parents and grandparents. And let me tell you, Dr. King would not be silent in times like these, and neither should we. Today, this weekend, Monday, every day, 365, 366, let us be the people that Dr. King would have us be. Let us not be silent. Let us collaborate, not hate. Let us join together in making Rochester, in making Brighton, a place that Dr. King would recognize as the beloved community, where people live in freedom, people live in peace, people live with social equity and justice. Thank you all for coming today. This is an extraordinary crowd. You are extraordinary people. Let's do it. Let's live it. Thank you so much.